Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pro Show for another week. I'm Colin.
And as always, I'm Jacob.
And we are here today with the results of our poll from last month. It turns out you guys really wanted a set review. So we're coming at you with a Battle for Zendikar set review.
Get excited.
Get excited. So without further ado, let's jump in.
Let's start with my personal favorite color. White.
Yes. So we're going to be going through the commons, the uncommons, the rares, and you better believe the mythic rares.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
a limited review, so we are Magic pros, but we will not be reviewing the card's impact on standard. This is purely from a limited perspective.
Now,
Draft and a little bit of seals.
Now, having said that, we probably will talk about standard a fair amount.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
It's hard not to. Okay, so the first card here is Tandem Tactics. We got 1 in white for an instant. Up to 2 target creatures each get +1/+2 until end of turn. You gain 2 life.
So actually, I like this card. It's a really cheap instant. It can, it's a nice combat trick. It's gonna trigger all the life gain effects into black-white. If you're playing allies, you want to be playing wide anyway, and white does well with allies.
Yeah, combat tricks, cheap tricks, man. They'll get you there. They will push you through, and this card could cause some serious blowouts, 1 for 2 or even more. And that extra life, it doesn't hurt anything. All right, moving on. We've got Sheer Drop, 2 in white for a sorcery. Destroy target tapped creature with Awaken 3 for 6. Now, if you don't know what Awaken is, it is when you cast a spell for its awakening cost, in this instance, 5 in white. You also put 3 1/1 counters on a land you control, and it becomes an elemental creature with haste. So this card seems pretty good to me. Swift Reckoning always did work in Origins. This one's a little more costed, but the upside of having Awakening makes this card flexible.
Yeah. This is exactly the kind of card you want to awaken with. This is just a straight up always a 2-for-1 if you awaken with this card. It's unconditional destroy too, so if you're facing down an 8/8 Eldrazi, you just kill it.
If it's tapped. The only problem is
people are going to be attacking you with their 8/8 Eldrazi.
That's true.
You can, if you chump block and then cast Sheer Drop, you think you're doing 2-for-1, but you're also doing Awaken, so it's really a 2-for-2. You have tempo advantage.
Well, this is a great card. Pick it early.
Yeah.
If you're in white, and even if you aren't, it's fairly splashable. All right. Next, we have Gideon's Reproach.
This is also a very good white removal spell.
Yes. This is 1 in a white. It's an instant, and it does 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. This will make combat hell for your opponent. If they know you have this in your deck, every single combat phase is going to take a minute longer while they agonizingly do the math and risk-reward assessments for attacking or blocking.
You just have to get your psychology down, or you just kind of stare at them while they're trying to think about whether you have Gideon's Reproach.
Mm-hmm. Even if you aren't playing this card, make it look like you are, because you might be able to discourage an attack with a valuable creature if they think it's going to get blown out.
For those of you who've played with Sandblast from the Figure Forge set, that was a card that was a lot easier to see coming because they had to leave up 3 mana and they were playing white. Somebody passes the 3 mana up, it's pretty easy to see that they're up to something. And Sandblast was a common, so you could tell what's going on. 2 mana is a lot more incidental. There's a lot of stuff that could be living up with 2 mana.
This is also a nice card. Pick it early. There's some creatures it won't kill in this set, but for the most part, there are plenty that it will. All right, next we have Felidar Cub, 1 in a white, for a 2/2 creature cat beast. It has Sacrifice It, Destroy Target Enchantment. Now, I'm not sure, but are there that many enchantments in this set we have to watch out for in limited?
I guess there's a retreat cycle.
Yes, and those are quite nice and limited.
Mm-hmm. We're coming from Magic Origins where you just see 2 mana 2/2 and you're like, slam it. I'm taking this first, top 5 picks. And there's upside too. Wow, but I feel like in this set you're not gonna. It doesn't really synergize it much. It's going to be a trip 2/2. You're just gonna get blanked very, very early, much earlier than it would in Origins. So this is probably just sideboard card material. If you see your opponent's playing Retreat, another strong enchantment, put it in. Otherwise, just gonna be too weak. Not gonna synergize with anything you're doing.
Yeah, and if you're short on playables, this is something you can pick up. I mean, it's a bear. It's got a bear body. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I played Inoc Guide and Fate and Dragons, so it's still playable. It's not what you want to be playing.
All right, next card. Jeez, white got so much removal. This is Smite the Monstrous. 3 and a white, instant. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Pick this card. There's so many mega giant creatures in this set. This will kill something, and something you want dead.
There are quite a few creatures with power 4 or greater in this set. No, I really like the synergy this has with the whole going wide strategy that white can do with allies, where you just fill the board up with some smaller allies, hold up some removal for the things that those allies would actually be afraid of. It's exactly what you want to be doing.
Yeah. Great card. Pick it. Not much to say.
Yes.
All right. Moving on. Stonehaven Medic. 1 and a white for a 1/3 core cleric. You may pay a white mana and tap it to gain 1 life.
I know there's some synergy with the white-black life gain archetype. I'm not a fan of this card. It's just not a good card on its own. Gaining 1 life is so incidental. It's just not a powerful effect. You want to be playing cards that really do something instead of just kind of tapping for 1 life at a turn.
Generally speaking, limited, you can get nice synergies and combos, but do not let this card trick you into thinking that you're going to be doing black-white life gain. There are better cards for it. This is just not a great card. It's playable if you have nothing else, but you'll have something else. Okay, moving on. Shadow Glider, 2 and 1 white. That's 3 total for a 2/2 flying creature type core soldier. This is actually, I think, going to be a much better card in limited than you'd think. There really aren't a lot of flyers. Not a lot of cards. I don't know if there's really anything with reach. I think there's Plummeting Green for killing flying, that blue enchantment that you would never want to actually use on this. And this will get you there. This will hit for 2 damage a turn for every turn after 3. I think it'll sneak in there.
So the reason I like this card a lot more than I liked Blessed Spirits from Origins, which is also a 2/2 but has better upside, is that this is one of the few creatures that can stop the blue 1/2 flying with Ingest right after it's played. Most of the time, if a blue Eldrazi deck plays that's going to get in for multiple attacks, exile multiple cards, enable their very strong processors. This is one of the very few cards in the set that can just put a stop to that immediately without spurning a good removal spell on a 2-mana 1/2.
Yeah. I like this card. I think it'll do a lot of work for you in limited, but, don't get mad at me if you pick this and it's a dead card. Okay, moving on.
I'll be very mad at you, specifically.
Okay, Ondu Greathorn. 3 and a white for a 2/3 beast creature with first strike and landfall. This is the first instance of landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Ondu Greathorn gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Wow. I mean, this card, it's common. It's a 2/3 first strike, which is already fine at 4 mana. But the upside of landfall, if you're attacking with a 4/5 first strike, Siege Rhino with first strike every turn, then I think you're going to be pretty happy with this card.
Yeah. So if you get a land every turn, this card is insanely good. So the problem I see is that this is the first landfall card we've seen, and we're starting in white, so we're not going to see very many more landfall cards. The white is not part of the landfall archetype. White's part of play a bunch of allies, or maybe play defensively and layer 2-for-1 with Awaken enough to start taking over the game. But this seems like a very synergy focused set to me, and I don't think this while it's a very good card on its own, I don't think this is a major player in any draft archetype you're going to see. And so that's why I expect it to be going earlier than most people actually want to be taking it. So don't get me wrong, if I have this and I'm playing white, it's going in every single white deck. This card just seems like the kind of card that is going to be overvalued at the draft table.
Yeah, you know what? I think I overvalued it right here at the pro analyst desk that we're sitting at. And another thing about this card, it does have first strike, which is a great thing for defending or stopping a creature from attacking, but it's much harder to trigger landfall on the opponent's turn, meaning that this will very likely, if it's not already sideways, be a 2/3, which won't stop a big Eldrazi from pushing your face in. All right, next card. We've got McKindy Patrol. I hope I said that right. Actually, I don't care. It's 2 and a white for a 2/3. Creature type is Human Knight Ally. And this is our first instance of Rally, the ally ability. When McKindy Patrol or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain Vigilance until end of turn. Put this in your ally archetype if you're drafting it. It'll be nice. Vigilance is great because it lets you leave up blockers. That is part and parcel of what Vigilance is.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I like this card a lot is because 2/3 for 3 is it's not great, but it's not undercosting. It's right where you expect the 2/3 to be. So this is a card where you can trigger itself once, then you've already, just by entering the battlefield, it's already a good card. And if you trigger once more with any other ally, if you have one other ally in your deck and you play that ally, the card has now done a lot of work for a 3-mana common.
Yeah, there's allies. It's a lot of value in little cards. The rally effect's great. And it's whenever allies enter the battlefield, the rally effect triggers. But that rally effect triggers on all creatures you control. So even non-allies are getting Vigilance off this card, and that is very nice.
Yeah, something about the ally deck that might not be immediately obvious is that you can play an ally deck with 5 allies. If you trigger Rally twice on one particular card, that card has done a lot of work in the game. Much more than it's costed for. So you don't need to be playing allies every single turn. You can be playing, the Ondu Greathorns, and all of a sudden be like, oh, by the way, this now has Vigilance and Lifelink.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of cards like an Origin, something like an Amperin Tactician or a Yeva's Force Mage, when it comes into play, it gives something 2/2 or all your creatures 1/1, and that's valuable enough as a one-time effect, and that is what Rally on a creature with no other allies in your deck means. So triggering it multiple times is just gravy. Pick this card, maybe not first pick it, but this card will do work for you. Okay. Next card, Lithomancer's Focus. It's a 1-white instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to this creature this turn by colorless sources. This is a decent combat trick. It's gonna really screw over your opponents sometimes when they're attacking with their big, scary, devoid creature. I don't think I'd take more than 1, maybe 2 of these if I was going super aggro heavy.
So 1 mana +2/+2 is a good effect, but it's not a great effect. If you really want to be just doing more, just trading 1 for 1, then it needs to have something like Trample or First Strike attached to it that would make it that would make it a very good card. But at the same time, it's still just a solid combat trick that has a lot of upside when you're playing against certain decks you're going to be facing every draft. I'd take 1. I'd probably take 2 max. Even more of those would be left in the sideboard.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward stuff. All right, moving on. Inspired Charge. 2 white, 2 colorless for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. This card doesn't really excite me. 4 mana's a lot for this effect, but it is at instant speed. I don't like this card. I don't think I'll pick it very often.
Oh, I mean, I'm thinking back to Warflare, back from Fate Reforged. That was exactly its effect. It had a red cost instead of a white cost. It also untapped your creatures. I'm thinking just how many times it actually untapping your creatures come up, because Warflare is a card you want one of in every single one of your red-white decks. And it was a finisher. It was a get in a bunch of damage and then also kill one of their blockers card. I think it's a solid card. I think it's something that you probably want one of. If you have to make sure you're going wide with this, and by wide I don't mean start playing the 1/1s. I mean if you go 2, 3, 4, and then on turn 5 you play Inspired Charge, it's gonna be great. Just make sure that you have 3+ creatures on the battlefield when you play this, or else it's not going to really work.
Yeah, the power and toughness you're getting is all determined by the number of creatures you've got. So if you go super wide, this card will be nice. If you don't think you're going to be going wide, save yourself the trouble and do not pick this card. It's also, should be noted, it's 2 white in its cost. There's going to be a lot of 3 and maybe 4 color decks in this limited format. And sometimes having 2 colored costs in a spell make it a little bit less desirable. Alright, moving on. Kite Sail Scout. 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. It's a core scout. It's not even an ally.
Not an ally.
This is, don't pick this card.
We've seen cards like this a lot. They come up, every set. If you're playing this, it's a mistake. There's no deck where this works.
Maybe you can find a way to sacrifice this and get value out of it. That's basically it. Don't pick this card.
You have a card that lets you discard cards, you can discard that one, and that's the best it's ever going to do.
Yeah. Okay. I think in most cases you'd rather just have another land because landfall triggers are more important than this card. Now watch this be the limited format defining card. Okay. No, it won't be. Next card. Core Castigator. 1 colorless and 1 white. Boy, I'm really mixing it up how I say this every time. It's a 2-mana spell. It's a 3/1 creature. It's a core wizard ally. Always nice to know when something's an ally. It cannot be blocked by Eldrazi Scions. I think this card is pretty decent. There's not a lot of 1/1s in the set besides that Kite Sail that we just talked about and the Scions. So for the most part, you're going to be trading equally or up with this card, and that's never bad.
Yeah, I think this is actually the 2-drop common you want to be playing in any ally deck, because not only is it very good on turn 2, this is not gonna trade down ever because this can't be blocked by Eldrazi Scions. So it's always gonna be good on turn 2. And if you play on turn 5, it still triggers Rally. It still has 3 power. I think this is a very strong card if you're just going to start beating down.
Yeah, multiples never hurt. I mean, 3 power for 2 mana is a really good deal, especially in white. You got a lot of upsides with the creature type and immunity to Eldrazi Scion. So, good card. Moving on. Fortified Rampart. 1 and a white for a 0/6 defending wall. I actually could see this card being a 1 or 2 of in a more controlling, converging, ingesting, processing white-blue plus extra colors deck. 0/6, that's going to block against pretty much anything they're going to play for the first 4 or 5 turns of the game. And then by that point, you should have your own stuff set up. So I think this card's pretty okay.
This seems like the card you want to be playing in the Awakened deck. It's not the ally card. It's just actually bad in an ally deck.
Absolutely.
But if you block with this for 4 turns straight and then start dropping Awakened spells, you're going to have enough life and enough resources to start doing that. And so I think that you probably want one of these in an Awakened deck.
Yeah. If you want to do things later in the game, take this card. If you want to be doing things immediately, do not take this card.
No.
Alright, moving on. Ghostly Sentinel. 4 and a white for a 3/3 core spirit creature with flying and vigilance. This is a nice card. I'd pick it not too highly, but it's definitely in there. Flying, great. 3/3, great. Vigilance, gravy. So, this will probably end up finishing a lot more games than I'm even estimating here. Because getting in for 3 every turn, that puts you on a pretty tight clock.
So, I think this is an acceptable card to play. It's never going to be exciting, and you're going to be going up against decks that have much better things to do on turn 5, and this also doesn't synergize with any kind of aggressive strategy you want. This doesn't synergize with any ally strategy you want to be doing. So I just see this as pretty mediocre. If you have to play us on turn 5, maybe your opponent responds with a Kozilek's Challenger or whatever, and you all of a sudden, if you're not going to win the game right there, then you just lost a lot of war position.
Yeah, it is a little costly for what it does. I think this card is really kind of luck-based. Like, if it does a lot of work, that's great, but it also might do nothing for you. So, buyers beware on this card. Don't pick it over anything that you know for a fact is valuable, but if you're in white, you're in pack 3, you need playables, this card will work for you.
Basically, if I see my opponent start tapping 5 mana, I'm going to be like, please, let it be the 3/3 Flying Vigilance.
Alright, next card. Angelic Gift. I'm just kidding, that's angelic. It's colorless and a white for an aura enchantment. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets flying, and when you play this card, you get to draw a card.
When it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, so you're still at risk of being 2 for 1.
Right, if they can kill your creature while this is resolving, that's bad. That's the big drawback of enchant creatures. You guys know this, we know this. If you don't know this, now you know this.
We're all pros here.
Yeah, enchanting creatures is really kind of a risky business. Even this one, it replaces itself, that's fine. Giving something flying it can be pretty good because it gives it evasion, but I'm trying to think. This might be able to push a big Eldrazi and turn it into a finisher by giving it evasion, but in an ally deck, you don't want this card because there's other things you want to be playing for 2 mana, like creatures.
Yeah, you want to be playing something that advances your own board state early in the game. Yeah, I think if we're going to get to these when we start looking at the Eldrazi, but if you're playing 8 mana Eldrazi and that's not winning the game by itself, it needs another card, it's a bad card. I'm thinking back to Magic Origins where Stratus Walk was a card. Yeah. And I think that Stratus Walk is actually strictly better than this card, Angelic Gifts. Because half the time you play Stratus Walk, it was 2 mana, this creature, your card creature your opponent controls can't block for the rest of the game, draw a card. And this just worse. Doesn't have that effect. Yeah,
this isn't an exciting card. I can't even see really picking it over anything. Maybe a Kite Sail Scout.
I would take this over to Kite Sail Scout.
Okay, well, you heard it here, guys. Angelic Gift, better than Kite Sail. Yeah, that is so hard to say. Moving on. Cliffside Lookout. It's a 1-mana 1/1. It's an ally, and it's got the lovely upside of being able to tap 4 and a white to give creatures you control 1/1 until end of turn. Now this card, in limited, means you are playing ally, you are triggering rally for 1 mana, which is great. It's fine early, it's a 1/1 that's not going to do much for you, but you need mana for something, or you have a bunch of lands untapped, you have nothing to do. Giving all your creatures +1/+1 is not bad. Instant speed, too.
I envy the position that you're in if you have 3 other creatures on the battlefield and 5 lands untapped, and you just have nothing else to do with your mana. That's a very good position to be in. I think you're already winning that game. This is a 1-mana 1/1. It's great if you have a bunch of other creatures on the battlefield, but by having this card in your opening hand, you're less likely to draw other creatures, and all those other creatures you're drawing are probably better. I don't like this card.
Not a fan?
I probably wouldn't put this in ally deck.
Alright, well you heard it here. Don't put it in an ally deck, even though it is a 1-drop ally. I can get behind that. You've convinced me. Moving on. Courier Griffin. 3 colorless and a white for a 2/3 Griffin creature. It's got flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. Now this card is as meh as it gets. It is just 4 for a 2/3 flyer. That's okay. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. That's okay. This card is okay.
When this card is the definition of replacement level. If you were saying, should I take this 4-drop here? Imagine how good it is versus taking a Quarry Griffin later. Because you're going to find one of those later.
Yeah. I don't even want to waste time talking about it. You can pick it if you want. Just don't do it highly, and it's not going to win you games, but it's going to be a playable card. You can make one of your 40 cards this one. All right.
You can make a card that one.
All right, we are moving into the uncommons. Now,
Ooh.
you'll see these cards significantly less. You might not even see them in one draft pool, but they're common enough that you have to be considering these cards in every game you play. Having said that, you probably won't, and neither will we. Unified Front. 3 and a white for a sorcery with Converge. Put a 1/1 white core ally creature token onto the battlefield for each color of mana spent to cast Unified Front. Now, to me, this card should just say 4 mana, trigger rally 4 times. This card is going to do a lot of work. Putting 4 dudes on the field is going to be great. Even if you don't get that mystical 4th color of land, 3 rally triggers and 3 creatures is still fine.
Oh yeah, if you can reliably trigger this for 3 mana, for 3 different colors, it's great. This is gonna straight up just win you games sometimes, especially if you have allies whose effects don't stack. You know, you can't trigger Vigilance 3 times. You can trigger bonuses to all your creatures 3 times. I wouldn't play this if I was only playing 2 colors. I don't think this is a powerful enough effect for a 2-color deck.
Yeah, it's there would be a super overcosted raise the alarm at that point.
Yes, and that you would need pre-existing allies on the battlefield to even be worth more than a basic land.
Yeah. If you are in the ally deck, though, and you get past this, chances are you're already running multiple colors, and this will be quite nice. Moving on, Stasis Snare. Colorless and 2 white for an enchantment with Flash, love Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Flashes, you may cast a spell anytime you can cast an instant, for those who weren't aware or just wanted a reminder. When Stasis Snare enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Stasis Snare leaves the battlefield. Great.
This is the best removal.
Yeah, I'll pick this card. I'll first pick it. Fuck. If there's nothing better than this, if there's no, bomb, then this is first pickable. It's removal with Flash. Yes, they might be able to get things back by destroying Stasis Snare with their Felidar Cub, but for the most part, they won't, and you will simply remove things from the game. Plus, when you exile a card with an enchantment like Stasis Snare, it goes into their exile pool and can thus be processed by an Eldrazi processor.
Something that's probably not going to come if you're playing white, but
you will feel very cool and very smart if you can Stasis Snare something and process it.
There's not very much to say about this card. It's just unconditional removal. First pick this.
Yeah, absolutely. Next card, Ondu Rising. Colorless and a white for a sorcery. Whenever a creature attacks this turn, it gains lifelink until end of turn. Awaken 4 for colorless and a white. So, for 5 mana, you get a 4/4 with haste, and all your creatures get a lifelink until end of turn.
So it's actually for 6 mana, because you need to be able to attack with a land also.
Correct. Yes, you would have to have 6 lands untapped at the start of your turn for this to be full value.
This is a very bad card without Awaken. Really, you only cast this for its normal cost if you're very, very desperate.
Yeah.
Just treat this as basically as a 6 mana spell.
Yes.
Make a 4/4, and all your creatures get lifelink until the end of turn.
And land creatures are quite nice. You will probably want to pick this card pretty highly. I don't think it's first pickable, certainly, but it is very nice, and you will be happy to play it.
So, something to keep in mind is that you're very happy to play it in a defensive white deck, probably a white-blue Awakened deck. You're not very happy to play this in an ally deck.
Yes.
Even if you're going wide with allies, it's still just not a very powerful effect, and it costs too much. You don't want to be up to 6 mana. Play this in a defensive white deck.
Generally speaking, Awaken is a slower mechanic, and allies are a faster archetype. So you're not going to get a lot of peanut butter in that chocolate, to make a perfect analogy. Moving on. Serene Steward. colorless, and a white for a 2/2 human cleric ally. Hey, whenever you gain life, you may pay 1 white, and if you do, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. I really like this card. This is the life gain archetype coming in, but it's also got synergy with allies, just in the sense that it is an ally. It's 2 for a 2/2. That is fine. And some cards have triggers where certain things happen and they get a 1/1 counter. You get to choose where to put this 1/1 counter, and I think that is what makes this card very valuable. If you're gaining life multiple times a turn and you have the mana to be tapping to trigger this, you're going to be making your board very threatening in the way that you want to.
Yeah, so this is a strong effect. Just infinite 1/1, not infinite, but a lot of 1/1 counters is something that's going to be difficult for your opponent to deal with. How good this card is dependent on how good the life gain in this set is.
Yes.
And so we've seen 2 life gain cards already. We've seen the Stonehaven Mystic that allows you to tap 1 mana, tap, gain 1 life. That's just a weak card. And we've also seen Tandem Tactics.
Yes.
Which that's a good way to trigger.
Yeah, I mean, it could be instant speed, which gives you quite a bit of flexibility. I mean, if you have 4 untapped, you Tandem Tactics, blow out, get 2 1/1 counters at the same time, that is going to feel really good.
So the other life gain cards we've seen are Courier Griffin, which we both agreed was pretty just mediocre. And we saw
Ondu Rising.
Also kind of mediocre. So, you don't really want to be forcing these mediocre cards in your deck in order to make a life gain work. It depends on how good the life gain archetype is in this set. If it's not really a thing, and you're not going to be triggering this more than once a game, you probably don't play it. Vanilla 2/2 is not going to be good in this set.
Yeah, but if you have how many life gain cards are you going to want before this becomes main deckable? Like 7 or more.
I'd say 4 cards that gave you 3, maybe 3 or 4. Because if you trigger this once, it's still putting 3 power and 3 toughness on the board for 3 mana.
Right.
If you trigger this twice, it just keeps on getting better as more times you trigger it. But I'm happy triggering it just maybe once or twice throughout the whole game.
Okay, you heard it here from the pros themselves. Serene Steward, go ahead and pick this card.
It's also good late because it's an ally, and if you have ally synergy, it's good.
Yeah. Putting an ally on the board when you have other allies is a very easy way to do well.
Combos.
Royal's Retribution is our next card. 3 colorless, 2 white. For an instant, Royal's Retribution deals 5 damage, divided as you choose, among any number of target attacking or blocking creatures. Now, this card is really nice. White has such good removal this set. This card, very similar to the card we saw earlier, Gideon's Reproach, that does 4 damage to attacking or blocking creature. This one costs a little more. It's a little more white heavy to cast, but you will never get less than the maximum value on this card. Well, you may be able to, but you'll never overkill something. You'll always be able to divide the damage as you choose. So if they're attacking with a 2/2 and a 3/3, suddenly this is a 2 for 1.
Yeah. So the important thing is, in order for this actually be getting good value and not be very, very overcosted, your opponent has to be attacking with multiple creatures, which is not something that you're going to see a lot of in some decks in this format. Your opponents, if they're playing some slower Eldrazi deck, maybe they don't attack you very much at all until they play their big payoff. So for that reason, so when you actually do cast this, and it's a 2 for 1 or sometimes even a 3 for 1, it's going to feel amazing. I would never cut this from a white deck ever. I'm going to pick it pretty highly, but it's something to look at, and probably wouldn't push me into white if I wasn't already in white.
I think a lot of the times this will probably end up not being as efficient. It'll just be a super overcosted Sandblast, but for those times, the ceiling on this card is much higher than Sandblast, and that's what makes it so tasty. So pick this card. Don't pick multiples of this card, but you'll want it. Okay. Core Entanglers is our next card. 4 and a white for a 3/4 Core Soldier Ally.
More allies.
Rally.
Ally.
Whenever core, this is a rally effect to make that clear. Whenever core entanglers or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. Now this is the kind of rally effect that Unified Front takes advantage of. You put 4 rally triggers onto the board. Suddenly you're tapping 4 things down, and all of your allies are beating face.
This is a. Why wouldn't say this is a game-winning effect? This is a very powerful effect and something that I'm okay with as a payoff for an ally deck. If you're going wide and your opponent's going tall, this just allows you to circumvent their tall creatures. I think it's a very, very good card.
Yeah. 5 for a 3/4, maybe not the most cost to body efficient, but again, this is an ally, and allies play well together.
But also, playing efficient bodies is not how you're going to win a game with the ally deck. You're going to be playing some overcosted bodies mostly. It's a synergy, playing them at the right time. That's really going to win you this game. This is not going to look like a green deck.
That is for true. Pick this card. If you're in allies, you probably won't want to pick this up if you're not running any other allies.
No.
Okay, moving on, we have Core Blade Whirl. 1 and a white, so 2 mana total for a 2/2 Core Soldier Ally.
More allies.
Boy, that's going to get fun if I do that every time.
You should.
Rally. Whenever a Core Blade Whirl or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, it's rally. Jesus. It's rally for first strike. Whenever it or another ally enters, everything gets first strike. First strike is a very good ability.
Mm-hmm.
It means you win combat pretty much every time if you are even or greater. It's a bear. So that's quite cost efficient. Put this in your ally deck. You're going to be happy about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm very happy triggering this once or twice over the course of the game. It's a very strong effect. It's great.
Yeah. Enough said.
Enough said.
Next card, Encircling Fizzer. 2 and a white for an instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures target opponent controls. Awaken 2 for 5. 4 colors and a white. So this card, it's a one-sided fog. I feel like the instinct here, if you don't know better, is to think, oh, this wins me combat. If they're attacking with something that would have traded anyway, they're not going to be too sad that you just spent a card to get rid of it. If you're casting it for Awaken, it's slightly better, but it's also Awaken for 2. You're putting a 2/2 land on the field, which isn't as exciting as a 4/4 is, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't think this card would be playable without the Awaken cost at all. This would be last pick, or pretty close to last pick. And the Awaken cost, just, you're paying 5 mana for a fog, and the 2/2 you're making probably can't trade with anything that there's 4 or 5 drop, maybe even a 3 drop. I'm not gonna play this. I'm not gonna draft this.
Yeah, let someone else draft this. You have a higher chance of winning if you do that. Okay, next card. Expedition Envoy. 1 white for a 2/1. No abilities, but its creature type is human. Scout. Ally. This is a 2/1, 1-drop ally. It might not be best for drafting. Pick it, sure, if you're running allies, but this is going to be, I think, more of a standard card for the ally decks, because this will put 2 power on the board first turn and open you up to some... late game, you pull this, all you have to do is invest 1 mana to get a rally effect, and it's a nice little card.
So, I've played a few Savannah Lion type cards in previous sets, and they are great on turn 1. They're great. You're going to be the beatdown immediately. You're going to have massive tempo advantage.
Yeah.
It makes life a lot easier. And what I like about this card is that it's also going to be good on turn 6. If you have anything with Rally on it, it's another card that triggers Rally. So it's not a dead card on turn 6 like the other 2 1-for-1s are in other sets. And so for that reason, I'm going to be taking this pretty highly. But I have a natural bias towards aggressive tempo decks, so let's take that with a grain of salt.
I think this card's nice. I probably won't pick it highly. This is maybe like a pack 2 or 3 pick once you know you're in allies. This is not a pack 1, pick 1 situation card. And then there's plenty of stuff that's going to simply eat this card after a couple turns. But, as Pro Jacob said, this card will do work for you in the right deck.
And we're all pros here, so.
Yeah. You, us.
That's
it. That's everyone. Okay. Next card, Angel of Renewal. 5 and a white for a 4/4 flying. Oh, should mention his creature type is Angel
Ally.
When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. This is a 6 for a 4/4 flying. It's a beating. The life gain, it's not amazing, but it's a perfectly fine upside, and we saw that, with cards like Serene Stewart, getting life is going to be able to have other effects for you. So I would definitely pick this card pretty highly.
So 6 mana 4/4 flying, I think, has always just been a replacement level card. It's always been very unexciting, but you will play if you need a finisher. I don't really consider the trigger on this to elevate it very much more highly above just replacement level. If you ever played with Scion of Ugin from Dragonstar here, you know just how unexciting playing with that card was.
Gold Sentinel, same thing.
Gold Force Sentinel from Origins. If you need it, and it's acceptable. Hopefully you find better things to do on turn 6. Your opponent will definitely be doing better things on turn 6 than this, just by virtue of other colors having access to some very powerful late game cards.
Yeah, pick this up if you need a playable. It's not gonna. Well, it actually will win you the game in some cases, but it's not. It's not going to. Well, I don't want to say it's not going to scare someone, because if you got a 4/4 flyer in your face and you don't have an answer to it, that's very bad.
Yeah.
But,
so much like the 5 mana 3/3 flying vigilance, if I see my opponent tap 6 mana, I want them to be playing this basically vanilla 4/4 flyer.
Yeah. Okay. Point taken. Now we're moving on to the rare cards. You will probably not see the majority of rare cards in any given draft pool, sealed pool, maybe a little more. But it's important to know what these do and which ones are first pickable, which ones are second, third, and fourth pickable, and which ones you will never pick. So starting out, we've got Hero of Gomafada. He's 4 colorless and a white for a 4/3 human knight ally. He's got Rally. Whenever Hero or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. This is a very nice card. You will be putting it in your ally decks.
Yeah, this is something that will push you into an ally deck specifically. You see this, this might not be a first pick for some people. There's probably some stronger uncommons, but if you see this early in a pack, this is pushing you into the white ally deck.
Yeah, if you get past this card, second or third, it's a really good sign that white is open, that allies are open. And I don't think I would feel bad first picking this card if there was nothing that was, way better than this. So it's 5 for a 4/3, which is fine. It's got Rally, which gives all your creatures indestructible, which is nothing to scoff at. I like this card.
Yeah. So when I say that you might not be first picking it because there's probably some uncommons better than it, there's not going to be very many uncommons better than this. This is still a first pick but rare.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Lantern Scout, 2 colorless and a white for a 3/2 human scout ally. Rally. Whenever Lantern Scout or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. This is also another very nice ally. getting this means you're going to want to go into ally. The payoff maybe isn't as good as Gomafada. However, lifelink is significantly better than gaining something like 1 life for every creature you control and the battlefield effect. Lifelink will make you harder and harder to kill every time you're playing an ally and swinging for damage.
So I don't like this for its effect. If this were on a different body, in a common, I would be very wishy-washy on this card. The reason why I like this card a lot is because it's a 3-mana 3/2. That's a very aggressive creature. It's going to put a lot of pressure on your opponent turn 3. And for the white ally deck, they don't have very many of those very reasonably costed aggressive creatures. So it's going to fill a very nice role on turn 3. It's going to have trigger other allies later in the game. Not a first pick, I would think.
No, not a first pick, but a very good sign allies are open, and a card you will want in a deck that's playing allies. Enough said.
Enough said.
Planar Outburst is our next card. 3 and 2 white for sorcery that destroys all non-land creatures, with the upside of having Awaken 4 for 5 colorless and 3 white. So 8 total. You are destroying all non-land creatures and turning one of your lands into a 4/4 elemental.
Yeah, so you're probably not casting this for its Awaken costs, but that's fine because these Wrath effects in Limited are bananas. Your opponent's never going to be expecting them. You can set up board states pretty easily where you just destroy 3 or 4 of their creatures. Definitely first pick this.
Yeah, and if you're the Awakened person in your draft pod, congratulations, you just got a very nice card. Or you first picked this and now you're an Awakened. Congratulations. Yeah, this is great. Not hitting non-land creatures is just extra incentive for the Awakened deck to play this, but any deck running white will want this card. If you see it, pick it.
Yeah, I would also run this in the ally deck that wants to curve out 2, 3, 4. Even though it might seem a little bit counterintuitive, if you have this in your opening hand, you can set up a board state by just kind of playing around it. Where you just play turn 5, or you play Planar Outbursts, destroy a bunch of their creatures, and then the very next turn follow that up with 2 or 3 creatures of your own. That's a beating. And if draws don't go quite right, you don't see any of your 2 drops, and those limited games happen where stuff just doesn't go right for you. This card will just reverse all that and put you right back in the game.
Mm-hmm. And, holding on to this card, if you don't want to wipe the board, holding on to it isn't bad because someday, some magical Christmas day, you will be able to awaken it and it will probably win you the game at that point. Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on. Oh, yeah, this is rare. It used to be a mythic, got downgraded to rare. This is Felidar Sovereign. We saw the Felidar Cub. We weren't impressed.
No.
The Sovereign, however, is 4 colorless, 2 white for a 4/6. That's fine. Vigilance, cool. Lifelink, great. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. Boy, what a fun card.
Yeah, so this is... I don't really expect to see the alternative win costs come up very much. It's going to be hard to get to 40 life in Limited.
Without killing them on the way there.
Yeah. But 4/6 Vision's lifelink is still just pretty good.
That's great.
It's very hard to block for your opponent. You have to put multiple creatures in a way. If you have any kind of combat trick at all, you can easily get a 2 or 3 for 1.
It's always upside because you're always gaining 4 life off of a trade, no matter what.
And it can block their opponent's 5 power creatures.
Plus, if you do ever get that win condition, 40 life, you're gonna be a legend.
you can just start jump up and celebrate in your local game shop,
and no one will be mad at you for showboating. Pick this card, first pick it.
I don't know about first pick.
Oh no, you don't know.
I don't know about first pick.
See, to me, this almost seems like Sentinel of the Eternal Watch from.
So Sentinel of the Eternal Watch was both a very good body and also a removal spell.
Yes,
and so I think that the removal spell is actually the more powerful effects between it and between the attacker blocker and a removal spell. I would probably take a very good removal spell over this. I wouldn't take what was it? I wouldn't take Royal's Retribution over it, but I would take something like Stasis Snare over it. I would take a Ruinous Path from the black cards we haven't seen yet over it.
Yeah.
Both those rares show up in the same pack, but yeah, you get the point.
Yeah, this is a nice card. I think, even if it does come down to this and Stasis Snare, I think that's what it's called, it really comes down to the player. Like, you'll probably take the Stasis Snare. I will probably take this card, because I love creatures, and I'm maybe not as good at this game as I'd like.
We're all pros here.
But I'm still a pro. I have still won event.
Yes.
Yes, okay. I don't need to justify myself to anyone.
We are all pros here.
Okay, moving on. Emeria Shepherd. 5 and 2 white, 7 total.
That's
For a 4/4 flying, it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If the land you triggered landfall with was a plains, you get to return that permanent to the battlefield instead. I like this card. How about you?
It's a very strong effect. The problem with it is I don't see hitting land number 7 very often in my white decks, and I definitely don't see hitting land number 8. You have no Eldrazi Scion in this color. You're not going to be able to ramp up to it very easily. You probably don't want to be hitting land number 8 because that means that you're drawing 8 lands instead of the 5 land 3 allies that you actually want to be drawing.
This certainly would not go in an
No, this is not an ally ever. I guess if you're really defensive white-blue, then this makes sense. We're limited. There's no ways to get rampant growth effects in blue, not in white. I don't see this. I just don't see the trigger happen very often. And when we're not triggering it, it's a 7 mana 4/4 flying, and that's not what you want to be playing.
This is it's a tricky card. This might end up performing a lot better than we're rating it. It might not ever see play at all. You could be getting past this 5th or 6th in your packs, and it wouldn't surprise you. I like the card. I wish it all the best. I'll probably end up picking it just because it's a rare a lot more times than I shouldn't. But yeah, this is a hard card to get the value out of. But when you do get value out of it, this card starts being huge card advantage. Recurring things from your graveyard, any non-land permanent, so it can't hit instants or sorceries, but creatures, enchantments, planeswalkers, yeah, putting them on the battlefield, even putting them in your hand's fine. Putting them on the battlefield is really nice. Mm-hmm. So, interesting card. We'll just have to see how it performs. All right, now we have 2 mythic rares. These are cards you will probably never see. And if you do see, congratulations. You're probably going to win a fair number of your games. First card is Quarantine Field. It's got 2X and 2 white. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, it gets X isolation counters on it. So at 2X, you're paying 2 mana for 1 isolation counter. When Quarantine Field enters the battlefield, for each isolation counter on it, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Quarantine Field leaves the battlefield.
Yeah, so this is a very strong card. If you're paying X's 1 for it, then it's not efficient removal. It's worse than Stasis Snare, but it's still very, very good.
4 mana removal is totally playable and limited.
Unconditional removal too. And when you're casting this for X equals 2, and you're paying 6 total mana for it, that should win you the game right there. Unconditional removal on 2 different permanents.
Mm-hmm. Non-land permanents. So if they have awakened creatures, then this card isn't going to do as much for you. But still, exiling 2 permanents for 6, that's a good effect. You're going to want this.
We're playing limited here. They're going to have 2 permanents that you want to take out. 2 for 1 removal. Unconditional 2 for 1 removal. It's nothing bad about that.
Yeah. Pick this card. First pick it if you open it. If you get past this, say thank you to whoever passed it to you. If you're in pack 3 and you get past this and you're not in white, maybe feel sad that you can't pick it because it's got 2 white in the cost.
Yeah, I can't splash it.
But it is very nice. You will want this if you're playing white. All right, our last card in the white set review, Gideon, or Gidgeon. I never know how to pronounce it. Ally of Zendikar. This is 2 and 2 white for a planeswalker named Gideon. He's got 4 loyalty counters when he enters the battlefield. You can +1 him. Standard Gideon effect of him becoming a 5/5 human soldier ally creature with indestructible that doesn't take any damage that turn, which is fine. It's important to note that does not actually trigger rally, even though he has ally creature type. Yeah, you'll probably have to explain to your opponents at some point during a limited match that +1ing him doesn't actually trigger rally, and they'll say, "Oh, that's too bad," and then they'll still kill you because they played Gideon. His 0 effect is put a 2/2 white knight ally creature token onto the battlefield. That does trigger rally, and this is what you probably want to do when you play him. And his -4, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +1/+1, which is nice.
If you open this, then congratulations on winning your draft.
Yeah, first pick it. If you're not in white and you open this in pack 3, start scrambling for as many mana-fixing sources as possible.
So, Gideon can immediately defend himself. He can immediately become... This is the 5/5 have haste?
The 5/5 does not have haste. You cannot use him.
You cannot attack with him the very first time you play him.
But you can put a 2/2 white knight ally creature token, or you can just +1 him because you want to get that sweet emblem out in the battlefield next turn.
And this is the only planeswalker I've personally ever played with where the emblem is a reasonable possibility. Yeah.
This his ultimate, to use that term, is quite affordable. It's not when you're playing it. It's not because you've already won the game. Although in limited, it kind of is because you played a really good planeswalker. But you can cast this emblem without being in Fairy Tale Land, where you just haven't been attacked for 4 turns straight. This is a nice card. Pick it, play it, put it in your ally deck, put it in your non-ally deck. Put it in a trophy case, do whatever the heck you want with this card. I don't care, because we are done reviewing the white cards from Battle for Zendikar.
That's it for white. What do you think about white as a color, Colin?
I think it looks pretty strong. I think the ally cards do a lot to support themselves. We saw a couple Awaken cards in Ondu Rising. Oh, maybe not Ondu Rising, but Planar Outburst. What was that other cool one? Sheer Drop. Yeah, there's great removal in white. White is, you wouldn't think it, well, I guess you would at this point, but white generally has better removal than almost any other color at this point.
Yeah, I know black and red are typically the removal colors, but white's up there. We're going to see more with our red and black set reviews later, but white just has everything you want. It has the removal. It has creatures that combo off each other. It has a couple late game finishers. If you see, the problem is if you see white in a seal pool, you're probably not going to get enough of the particular white flavor that you want. The Awakened cards and the allies don't mix well together. You're playing half. You have to basically eliminate half of your white seal pool when you open it. But other than that, if you're drafting this, you can choose your flavor of white. It's going to be very strong. This is a solid color. Yeah,
very exciting. All right, well, this has been our white set review. We'll be coming at you with a different color.
I think we're moving on to blue.
We're moving on to blue. Oh, that's exciting. Get ready for blue on the next episode of The Pro Show with Colin and Jacob. Bye.